do love to share that there is so much more to life than we realize when we haven't done this work, that it's absolutely worth doing because there's so much depth to life. Right? As you deepen your self-awareness, you become aware of more things that are happening within you, but also outside of you and in other people. And it just makes life so much more satisfying. So I absolutely encourage people to do some of this work.
Welcome back to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. Today, we're talking about something deeply personal and incredibly powerful, the healing work that helps us move past trauma and stress and into a life of peace and purpose. I'm so honored to have my guest, Hince, join me today. She is a remarkable woman with an absolutely powerful story and a compassionate heart. She doesn't just talk about healing, she provides concrete steps that anyone can try today once you listen to this podcast. You could also go out on YouTube and watch her videos, and we're going to make sure all that's in the show notes. But I just have to say, after talking with her today, I got even more excited about trying all this work on my own self for healing and balance. And so I hope that you find it inspiring and plausible for you as well. Her insights are a perfect fit for our Go Slow to Go Fast philosophy because true healing happens with intention, not speed. And she actually talks about the tension and bringing attention to the tension in our body. And so during our conversation today, we're going to dive into how to start this journey and why it's so important to be gentle with yourself and the incredible freedom that comes from releasing those old burdens, clearing away that negative energy. So without further ado, let's get started. And I just want to thank you for being here. I'm so excited that you've decided to come on the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. So before we jump in to your story and journey, can you just kind of give us a little insight into how your week is going and what you're doing to go slow to go fast right now?
Okay, thanks for having me, Kendra. It's great to be here. Let's see. I pretty much these days always do go slow to go fast. And that is bringing myself back to the present moment and noticing how I'm feeling in the present moment, which is something 20 years ago I couldn't do. So now I'm very good at doing that and I do it all the time. So my week's going good. I love life now. I'm very much in the present moment. Like I don't, people, my family especially, kind of tease me that I don't really get excited about things in the future because it will happen when it happens. I'm just quite content right now.
I get that too. Yeah. And you alluded a little bit like 20 years ago, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing now. So can you walk us back through where you were 20 years ago and kind of what led you along this journey?
Well, I've realized now that I probably had complex PTSD at that point from multiple different traumas in my childhood. And I was very reactionary. Like I was very jumpy. I was always thinking of what was going to go wrong and trying to avoid it. You know, that was me on the inside. I think a lot of people couldn't necessarily see it from the outside, but I was very fearful on the inside all the time and had a very busy mind, a very self-critical mind, a judgmental mind, and I hated that. And it got to the point where I had something happen, which I could tell you now. Would you like to hear what happened?
Yeah, sure. I think that would be good for our listeners and viewers to hear your story too.
It was like a business altercation with two other mothers at my boys' school. You know, so it didn't sound like a big thing, but they were these self-confident, self-assured authority type women in my mind. And I was not. I was a scared mother on the inside. And they both told me I'd done something wrong. And I could not stop my mind spinning for like 3 days. It just went over and over, you know, what I'd said, what they'd said, what I did, what I could have done differently, just all those different permutations. I could not stop it. And then at the end of 3 days and nights, I realized, okay, this is not normal. And I didn't know anyone else who would react this intently to something that really wasn't a big deal. You know, it was just a business decision I made and they didn't like it. But But it wasn't normal. And that's when I realized that, this is a little bit like how I would react as a child when my dad would tell me I'd done something wrong. So that was that little opening, that little inkling that maybe something from my childhood is still affecting me to this day. So that's when I made the decision, I have to change. I have to change me, who I am, so that different things happen. So that was the start of my journey.
Wow. And you really, I think you have to be really self-aware to realize whatever you're going through is not normal.
But I had to go through. Some people might call it the dark night of the soul, something like that. It was intense, emotional work for 3 days that took me so low that then I had that opening. And I think that happens with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of like when you get into a fight with somebody in your family or just a disagreement, and then you realize it's really not about whatever that's about. It's about something else lying below the surface, and you've got to work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's rarely about what's happening right now, but we're just re-triggered with the old emotions that we held inside from childhood, probably. And it's nice to move beyond that and not get triggered so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you start to figure out what worked for you and what didn't work for you to kind of come to that understanding?
Right. Well, I didn't really know what to do at the time. I'd done a lot of outside things over the years. I tried to change my diet and all those kind of things, but nothing really worked for very long. And I didn't know what to do at this point. It was just by coincidence that in this time frame, I had a doctor's appointment. And he was a holistic physician, so he had more tools in his toolbox than most doctors do. And he recognized I was stressed. Now, I didn't go there for any mental health. I can't remember why I went to him, but it was nothing to do with mental health. But he recognized I was a stressed mother. So I was a stay-at-home mother with 2 young boys, right? It shouldn't have been too stressful. But he asked me on a scale of 0 through 10 what my stress level was, and I said 8. And then he asked me why. And that took me back to the memory. Okay, it was probably because I found my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19, which at the time was a huge trauma for me. And I hadn't dealt with it, right? Because I didn't know how to at the time. We were never taught as children to grieve or to feel our emotions. We just carried on with life and suppressed it all. So when I said that to him, he happened to know the technique that is called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. It's also called tapping because we're tapping on certain places on our body as we're talking something through. And he tapped with me for about 15 minutes about my mother's death. I told the story like I'd never told it to anyone else before. And I tapped and let the tears flow. And at the end of that 15 minutes, when I went home, I could tell the story in my mind for the first time ever without the tears there, because they'd always been just under the surface. For 2 decades, they had been just under the surface. And I just let some of them go. I had no idea that we kept everything so tightly held in our bodies and that we could let it go. So that was the first experience for me of this technique. And I went home and I started to learn everything I could about it.
Yeah. And it's amazing that it worked so quickly for you. You said 15 minutes and you were able to release.
Yeah. Now I had to go back to my mother's death again because it was a big experience. It had lots of different aspects to it. But that showed me that there was something that I could use that was really powerful, very easy and pretty quick. So I went home, I learned everything I could about it. At the time, it had just been developed a few years before by an engineer called Gary Craig. He was a chemical engineer. And I had an engineering background, so that actually helped me. I thought, okay, well, if he's an engineer and he developed this, maybe it's going to work. But he also gave it away for free. So anyone could go online and learn about it. So I did. And then I wanted to check it out. I wanted to test it because, maybe it was the doctor, right? Maybe it wasn't the technique. Maybe it was the doctor. So at the time I had a 17-year-old cat at home and he was starting to fade. His kidneys were starting to stop working. So we were told we had to give him a daily saline shot. So an injection of saline solution. And I had so many injections over the years, not as many as kids have these days, but back then it was a lot because I lived all over the world. and I hated injections.
Yeah.
And the first time I gave him one, my hand was shaking so badly. I knew I couldn't mentally do it every day. So I thought, well, let me try out this technique. Let me check it out, see if it works. So I did. I tapped about every aspect of it, which is something you do with EFT. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting the cat. And I tapped about all the memories from all the injections that I had had over my childhood. And the next day when I gave him that shot, the needle just slid right in. All that shaking and that fear that had been living inside of me the day before had totally disappeared. So that's what gave me the confidence in this technique. I knew it worked, and I knew I wanted to get to that place of peace with everything in my past. So that's when I started using it every day.
Yeah, I mean, once you see that it works and then you see that it works a second time in a totally different situation, not with that variable of the doctor, then that would hook me too. I would want to do it for every little thing
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did take it in stages because I was so new to this and I wasn't self-aware at all. As I said, I was very reactionary. So what I had to do is I had to work out what I was feeling during the day. So that was the first thing I did. I started asking myself during the day, okay, how am I feeling right now? Whether it was frustration or sad or angry, I had to stop and say what that was. I had to learn how to do that rather than become angry or become frustrated. I had to put a gap in there. I had to say, okay, look at me. I am becoming frustrated. Because until you can do that, you can't do anything about it.
Right. You have to
Right?
acknowledge.
Right. So once I was aware of what the emotion was, then I would tap on it and I would acknowledge that I'm feeling frustrated because this happened or that happened. And I would do that over and over again until I was back at peace. And then I would carry on with my day and ask myself again and then tap again. So I got pretty good at doing it. And that started to calm me down, which was really nice.
Yes. I mean, it's amazing that you're able to find this technique and use it and then see positive outcomes already with a couple of tries. And then you
Plus, I
continue to
had young
use it.
children at the time. And I'm guessing it would have been really useful for you when your triplets are young. But you can tap on them too. So I would tap on my kids when they were, whatever.
Yeah.
The thing I remember most is when my son, who was about 8, would have nightmares. And I would just go and tap on him, tap on his points. I didn't need to say anything because all the emotion was living inside of him. So I would just gently tap on his points. And a couple of rounds, 2 or 3 rounds, he would say, okay, Mom, you can go now. I can go back to sleep.
So you can do it to somebody else as well. You don't have to just do it to yourself. It works both ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, you would want to do it on yourself so that you are not, you're not changing how they're feeling based on how you're feeling. So if you bring yourself back to peace and then you tap on them, that would be ideal. But yes, if someone's had a trauma or something and can't do it themselves, or someone's elderly or very young, you can just tap on them.
Okay. And, I know you have a YouTube channel, and I've gone on there and done a deep dive on some of your strategies and learned myself. And while I know a very little bit about EFT tapping. Do you mind just kind of walking through a little bit? But if you want to know more, listeners and viewers, you need to go out to her YouTube channel and see more of Anne's info, because she walks you through it pretty regularly. Like, she goes through all her strategies. So, but if you could just kind of explain what tapping, not just like where on the body and how to do it, but maybe the why of what you've figured out works.
Yes, sure. Yeah. So it's kind of like acupressure. So we're tapping on meridian points, so acupuncture points, and they're kind of spread throughout the body. So the ones we use with EFT kind of cover the body. So we just use the same ones each time. And what the tapping is doing is it's interrupting the nervous system. So if you're often triggered by someone leaving socks on the floor, if that triggers you, you have an automatic response when you see the socks on the floor. So if you tap, if you interrupt your nervous system, it allows the energy of that trigger to leave your nervous system. to leave your body, so that if you do it enough times, and sometimes it takes, a few times of being triggered by the socks on the floor. If you tap each time, eventually gets to the place where it doesn't bother you at all anymore. It's just not a trigger because all that energy has been removed from your body.
I could have used that this morning. That's a good reminder. I will use that this evening when they're putting their clothes away.
So what I loved about it is it's permanent. I mean, it changes you on the inside. So it's not something you do have to keep doing over and over again. You don't have to try and change yourself. The tapping changes you. What you do is you start tapping on the karate chop point on the side of your hand. And that's what you do, a setup phrase. So something like, even though those socks really bother me, that's my truth in this moment. And it's okay that they bother me. I can let them bother me. So you do that 3 times. And then you shorten the phrase and you say something like the socks on the floor. And the first point is the crown point on the top of your head.
Okay.
Those socks really bother me. And then the next point is the beginning of the eyebrow. Those socks really bother me. And then the bone on the edge of the eye. Those socks really bother me. The bone under the eye. Those socks really bother me. Under the nose, on the upper lip, those socks really bother me. On the chin, those socks really bother me. 2 more points. The collarbone point. Those socks really bother me. And then the last point is about 4 inches under the armpit where your bra strap goes across, if you have one.
Mm-hmm.
Those socks
Doesn't matter
really
which
bother
side?
me. Doesn't matter which
Doesn't
side.
matter? Okay.
No. And I often do both sides on my face, but you can just do one side. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And then you take a deep breath and you let it out. And that is 1 round of EFT.
Okay. And so you do it 3 times.
You do the karate pop point 3 times. But then you can do as many rounds as you want, and you can vary the words. You're trying to stimulate the reaction inside of you. So if you're doing something that brings on tears right from the past, you want to keep saying words that keep the tears flowing, right? It's not necessarily the nicest thing to do.
Yeah.
But those tears are still,
the
tears are still stored inside of you. So you want them to release. So so you keep doing it. So with my mother's death, I would tap through the story from the beginning when I woke up in the morning to the end, things I remembered about that day. And then I'd go back to the beginning and I'd tap through it again. And then again and again. And each time your subconscious mind is opening up and details of the story that you had forgotten will come to surface and different aspects of the story. So then if you leave it a day and you come back to it another day, you might remember different parts of the story. So it kind of opens up your memories and your subconscious mind.
I like this because, there are teachers out there and educators who listen to this podcast that have worked with me in the past or are talking to friends. And if you were in education in 2020 during the pandemic, you probably got on Go Noodle, which is something that we do we watch that with kids for like movement breaks. And they did go over EFT and tapping a little bit. They didn't really get into the detail that you do. And now as an educator, I'm understanding a little bit more that like it made me feel good, but I didn't know the why. And I didn't know maybe how often to do it and, really strategically where to tap. I was just basically mirroring whatever they were doing in the videos. So this is, I think, more practical, these steps that you can really follow and then think about, okay, why is that thought coming to mind? Why does it keep coming up? Maybe I need to keep tapping until I clear it.
Yeah. And with schools, I think it would be amazing to do it every time after recess, right? And after lunch, they could tap on what happens, even first thing in the morning, right? Something happened at school, they could tap on however they were feeling about whatever happened at home that night or the morning to let it go so that they could then function better at school.
Yeah, I think it should be something that we do every day in classrooms. So
I think there are some schools, I think I've heard of some schools that do use it. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I just love knowing that you have that engineering mind and you're already trying to figure out the science behind it and kind of adding that practical piece to it. So that's helpful.
And over time of doing it more and more, what I realized it's doing is I said it's opening up the subconscious mind. And as that happens, it happens at the same time. It's like kind of one and the same thing. Your self-awareness deepens. So I became aware of my emotions that I hadn't been aware of before. But then as I kept going, I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So something like frustration, right? I can feel frustration in my rib cage, in my sternum. I had not been aware at that level when I started. I could not have told you where in my body I saw sadness or any of the emotions. I had to do that work first, which started to open up my subconscious mind and deepen my self-awareness. So as time went by, I realized I actually didn't need to necessarily use EFT. I could just feel my feelings, which, that's a kind of a phrase that we hear, people say, just feel your feelings. But when you're so shut down, like I used to be, I couldn't have done that. But I got to the place where I could. So then I started feeling my feelings, just holding my awareness on them. And actually, I realized I couldn't actually feel them if I kept breathing or if I kept moving. So I would hold myself like a statue once I felt fear inside of me. Once I could focus on the fear, I could feel the tension in my connective tissue in my stomach, maybe. I would stop. I wouldn't take any more breaths in or out. I wouldn't move. I would just hold myself and focus on that feeling. And as I did that, sometimes it would kind of crescendo and release, or it would just release. I could feel the tension release. And then I would do the same thing. I would think the same thought, the thing that brought up the fear. I would hold my awareness on it, and I would feel it release a little bit more. So it's the same kind of process as doing the EFT, talking through something over and over again. Now I'm feeling it over and over again, and it would release. So it's a deeper level of self-awareness.
Now, I don't want to give away all the secrets of your YouTube channel methods, but there is another one that I tried, the breathing through the straw. And I noticed things right away the first time I did it. And it was kind of like amazing. And I'm going to keep doing that one too. But now I want to go back and do your EFT tapping a little bit more with purpose of like what I'm thinking at the time.
Okay, great.
So,
well, I think what you're talking about is the blowing through tension. I think that's what it's called. And sometimes, that's a little bit more advanced than the EFT. The EFT is the first step because with the blowing through tension, you have to be aware of where the tension is. And I couldn't have done that at the beginning, right? So I think you're starting at a deeper level than I was. So if you're aware of it, that's great. And it helps to release tension that doesn't really release any other way. So it is very powerful.
Yes, because I've got a lot of tension in my gut. I got a lot going on in there. And so I'm trying to release that. And I've tried acknowledging the pain and just kind of talking to it like, okay, I am feeling you. So I'm feeling my feeling and I'm trying to talk through it. And I'm like, okay, you can go now. You've let me know where you are in the body. Okay, I'm good with, but it just seemed like that wouldn't work for me. There was more to get rid of, clear.
Right, because you're not holding it at tension, right? The word attention is 2 words, at tension. So when you're holding yourself like a statue or you're blowing through the tension, you're holding your attention on the tension. And that's what it needs. It needs the attention to let go.
Okay. So that's probably why it worked. But I like that you say you don't have to really understand why it's working, because you really explain it with a friend in your video about you don't really have to totally understand it and get it. Just try this strategy and see what happens.
Yes.
Which I think that's helpful because some people feel like I can't do these mindful techniques if I don't understand. Well, you can. You just have to try.
Try them out and see if it works. Yeah. And then as you keep doing it, you will start to understand it. Yes.
And I think, I'm not saying, that there's a lot of people out there that just don't try anything because they feel like they have to know before they understand to do. But I think you can go in whatever order you're ready to go in. But I think that you're just a natural teacher and you kind of lay that out in your YouTube videos. It's very helpful.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I kept going after that. That's kind of one more step that I went through as my awareness deepened, my self-awareness deepens. So I did this work. I would lay on the sofa and bring like collective traumas to mind. Well, let me go back a step. I forgot to say that when I was doing the EFT, things changed so fast. I realized I wanted more and faster. I really wanted change. I was enjoying it. It's like, let's do more. So I wrote down every emotional memory from my childhood, all the traumas, the big traumas, the little traumas, the humiliations, the embarrassments, all of those things. And I tapped through them one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night. Okay. And things really changed rapidly at that point. My mind started to quiet. I'd always had a busy mind. I didn't know what a quiet mind felt like, and it felt totally different. I felt like I was living in a different reality. And I realized that the self-judgment and self-critical thoughts and generally critical thoughts had been my dad's words that I had taken on as my own and just used them on myself because he used them on me. So why don't I use them on me?
Right.
But they disappeared after I had done the tapping work on the memories of my dad. And what was left in their place was nothing. It was a quiet mind. So it was really nice. But then I started doing the feelings. So I would lay on the sofa. So instead of doing the tapping at night, I would lay on the sofa and I would bring collective traumas to mind. So things like the Loma Prieta earthquake that I was in, and the tsunami and 9/11, the big things that we all saw on TV or heard on radios, right? We kept those emotions, most of us did. Well, I did, kept those emotions inside of us, and I needed to let them go. And as I did that over time, I did experience Kundalini energy during that part, and I've done some videos on that, but it's kind of a weird thing for most of us to comprehend. Mm-hmm. But eventually it got to the place that I could put my awareness inside my body. Instead of just being aware of the tension, I could actually focus inside. Now, it sounds like a really weird thing to say, and it was really weird at the time. I had no idea what had just happened. But I kept playing with it, and I realized I could move my awareness around. And then I realized there was tension or no tension. So I'd find a place that had tension inside, and I would focus on it with my awareness, my attention, and it would release. So I kept doing that over and over again. So same process as the EFT and the feelings, but now I'm inside the body. And I would move around my body, feel the tension, hold my awareness on it, feel it release. And eventually, it took many, many months, but eventually I got my awareness inside my head, which, again, I know how weird it seems or sounds, but I did. And I realized at that point, I had this incredible pain inside my left cheek. It was just almost unbearable. I could only focus on it for a second at a time. And I realized it had been there my whole life because I was born with my right foot up against my right shin, and my whole body was twisted with scoliosis. And whether it stemmed from this cheek or not, it was all hooked up through the connective tissue of my body. But I hadn't been aware of it. It had been stuck in my subconscious, inside my tissue, until I got to the place that I had released so much that I had got to this place inside my cheek. And then I could start working on it just a little bit at a time. So I would do that. And it got to the place that one day, I remember where I was in Starbucks, and I was just working on it in a room while I was waiting for other people to arrive to a meeting. And I heard and I felt something release. And it was a little scary at the time. I don't know what it was. So I went home and did some research, and I realized I had released an adhesion in my connective tissue through this work. So it sounded like old fabric ripping, and it felt like old fabric ripping. So I realized I wasn't hurting myself because I had been a little concerned that I was. So I kept doing it. And over time, I actually got to the place where I could feel my skull bones relax. Now, I hadn't known they weren't relaxed before, right? Just like I hadn't known my dad's words were part of my lexicon. But they did relax. I could feel them relax. And eventually I got some x-rays taken just as part of my orthodontic work, which I've had throughout my life. And I looked back at the old x-rays and I could see, wow, my jaws moved. My jaws widened. Just all these shifts in my bones and my skull I could see. And that's also around the time that I measured myself, because I could tell I was looking at people at a different angle than I had been before. So I measured myself, and I had grown 3/4 of an inch in my 50s because I'd released the burden that had been compressing me down.
It sounds like cranial sacral work to me, but you were doing it from a different angle, not physically. It was more energy work.
From the inside, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had craniosacral before. This is
Just
more
deeper.
like chiropractic. Like I hear the snaps and the pops and
the crap.
all those things happen.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's really deep. I mean, they're deep inside my jaw.
Connective
I just hear
tissues.
it rip. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful.
And I mean, just trying your technique one time with the blowing, the intention was, and you said, and it was true, you said in your video that you might feel the tension release in other places than where you're putting your attention, but that's all got to release, and it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
To see
when
how
I focus on this pain in my cheek, which is very small now, it's a very specific place right now. Usually the release happens on the right side of my neck, which has been, I think, tight. It's still very tight, but they're connected. They're definitely connected. So I find where the pain is, I focus on that, and my body knows where to release. So that's what's happening.
So it's kind of like your body's been overcompensating. And so when you release, it's definitely going to feel in different places where that release is happening.
Right. Yes. And the release is throughout the body, right? Because you're compensating everywhere in your body. So yes, you got it.
It makes sense to me. Like, I don't have a scientific background, but I would, support kids in the science classrooms and high schools and middle schools. And so as a special ed teacher, so it totally makes sense, like connective tissues. And if you think back to anatomy class or dissecting, whatever you did when you were in school, it totally makes sense. All the layers of the fascia and the connective tissues that are under there.
Yeah. And if you go back to the classroom and look at all the ADD and the ADHD these days, right? I realized eventually, it took many, many years for me to realize this, but we will often move when a thought is arising that we don't want to feel. So I think that's what's happening with a lot of these children. They've got memories and histories that it's not good to feel. They don't want to feel it. So they will automatically move so that they don't have to feel it, which kind of goes back to the feelings, right? I had to be absolutely still to feel it and allow it to release. And if I didn't, I would lose the thought. So I think that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to move we know the kids need to move and they need to run and they need to be outside and they need to play, but it also makes sense that they need to be able to learn how to be still and release when they're ready.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to happen at a different time for everybody. So when they're ready is when it's going to happen. But if we can teach that skill earlier and earlier, then we don't have to worry about it happening 20 years after.
Yes. I mean, if we can allow the children to feel the emotions as they arise, that would be ideal.
Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense. As a parent and as an educator and as a person, for me and my own stuff that I've got to clear out, it makes sense.
Yeah. I have a great story from the early days of EFT that I was going on a plane ride. It was a long ride. It was to Spain or England, I think. And, people don't like screaming babies on airplane rides, especially long ones. So there was this child, this young baby. He was probably around 4 to 6 months old. And he was just screaming and screaming, hoping it's going to stop, and it doesn't stop. Eventually, I got up, I went across the plane because they were on the other side, asked the father if he would swap seats with me for a little while, asked the mother if it would be okay if I tapped on her child. And so I just gently tapped on the baby for, I think it was 2 rounds, and he relaxed, he stopped screaming, and he fell asleep. So all he needed to do was to relax his nervous system, to allow the emotions to release in a way that would release from the body. And then he went to sleep. Yeah.
That's all I needed is that lady to come across the aisle.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we
Oh,
allow children to do that, right,
yeah.
just feel those feelings, just allow them to be felt, then the nervous system relaxes and you can
Yeah.
move on with life.
Yeah. Yeah. And kids are going to try it. They're curious. They don't have to understand why. They're just going
Yeah.
to, if you're
At a
doing
certain
this,
age.
they're going to try.
My
Yeah.
boys got
The
to the
younger,
place
the
where they
better.
wouldn't. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. That makes sense. I can definitely see my 10-year-olds trying it, but then when they get to be teenagers, they're going to be like, leave me alone. Good
Yeah.
times.
I would love, there has to be a child somewhere who would learn the technique and keep doing it and then learn it, to manifest things, to
Mhm.
release resistance to anything that shows up in life, to homework, to something they don't like
Yes.
at school, right? Just work with it and see what it would create in their life. I would just love to experience that with some child.
Yeah. Well, I've got 3, so I think I have at least one that might be interested in that study for you. If you want a little guinea pig,
Okay.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. One of mine has a lot of anxiety around math, and we've been working with him. But I think the more and more he sees it, maybe if he has some control over it, that would be helpful to do the
Yes,
tapping.
right. And in some ways, control sounds like a reasonable thing to say, but it's right. It's kind of the opposite.
Yes.
It's like
Letting go.
totally allowing him to say and feel exactly what he feels about it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
It's okay not to like it. It's okay. Even though,
right,
yeah, the
right.
mom
Or even
educator in
hate it.
me.
We say, don't use
Yeah.
the word hate, but if we feel a hate,
Sure.
let's feel
Yeah.
it. I'd
Feel
rather
it.
have hate outside my body than stuck inside.
Yes. Feel your
So,
feelings. Yes.
yes, yes.
And
So I
I'll feel
still
my
use
feelings
EFT.
about socks.
Yeah, I use EFT a lot on politics, on things that are going on in the news, right? Because I want those thoughts and those feelings gone from my mind. I don't want to have to keep replaying them. So I will say exactly what I feel and then tap as I say it.
And I think, we don't all have to agree about what's going on in the world right now, but we know that there's a lot of feelings. So if we can tap and acknowledge and let our body go through that, I think that's going to help a lot of people out there. So that would
Yeah.
be
I mean,
great.
it doesn't matter what we feel about
It
what we,
doesn't.
right? All
Yeah.
our emotions,
Right.
okay. Right. They're
Hmm.
just energy that's stuck in the body. So
Right.
that's one of the
Work
key
through
things
it.
is the EFT works with the negative. The negative emotions are that tension that's stored in the connective tissue. So we only have to work on the negative,
Hmm.
right? So there's really no point in tapping on the positive. A lot of people online these days, they use scripts, they talk through scripts online with EFT and they move to the positive. That's kind of
Okay.
nice, right? Because it does bring up
Yeah.
the resistance we have to the positive. But we
Right.
don't have to do that because the positive is not stored in the body. It's the negative that's stored in the body.
That's interesting. And you've kind of alluded to this in your videos that I've watched. I've only done a little bit of research, but that you were thinking that our subconscious may be in our body as well, not just here.
Right. I think it's the connective tissue. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where our soul is too. It's kind of tied into the body through the connective tissue. Because I'm looking inside my body. I'm looking from somewhere, which I think is the sphenoid sinus, and kind of it's behind my eyes, kind of behind my nose in the middle. I can tell kind of where I'm looking from, but I'm
Right.
looking in other places in my body, and I'm looking, I think, through the connective tissue. That's how I move my
Hmm.
awareness through the body.
Mm,
And it's the tension in there that it's negative emotions, it's negative memories. That's what
right.
I release. And once I release it, there's nothing holding my awareness back. It's not stopped from moving around. So, yeah. And as you release the tension, often memories will just pop into your mind, pop into my
Hmm.
mind. It's wild to experience actually, because I've lived all over the world on different continents as a child. So this was from Hong Kong. A memory from Hong Kong will just pop up. Or I'll be sitting in a pub in England with my dad. Or it's just really interesting how it's tied into that tension. Those emotions, those memories are tied into the attention.
Yeah, that is fascinating, and at the same time, it might kind of be overwhelming for some people, but I think if you just try one of these techniques and see how it works for you and what happens, or if it
Yeah.
doesn't work for you, let us
Yeah.
know.
I haven't spoken to anyone yet who's also able to do this inside work. So yeah, I'm just telling you that for information now that it's down the road. But EFT, or the blowing through tension are the ones to start with. And as you do that, your self-awareness will deepen.
So I'm just wondering, if there's anything else that you want to share with the listeners and the viewers out there about your work and maybe what's next for you? Like, what are you looking at exploring a little bit more now?
Okay, you're talking outside of me. Yeah, I'm very busy on my YouTube channel. I'm really enjoying it because I kind of get to make the videos that I want to make, which I really like. So that's mostly what I'm doing. Sometime down the road, I would like to put out a course. I know people have asked for that and I haven't got to that yet. But the videos really are
Yes.
essentially that. I have a masterclass on inner peace, which goes through the different steps that's coming out in the next week or two. So that's like a half hour and it's got all the steps in there. So that information is there. I also have my book and a workbook. So if anyone wants more details, that's there too. And, eventually I'd love to be traveling the world and giving talks and talking to people. That's what that's what I'd like to do.
That would be great. I think that I think the world needs this information, and that's a lot of what we're looking for. And we don't have to necessarily understand it to see it working if we just try.
Right. Yes. And inside, I'm still working in my head. I'm still clearing out that tension. And
Mm,
as you go, you're only shown a step at a time. So I'm
mm,
only shown, I can see the path. I know where the path is. And I can now tell that there would be a place at some point in the future where there would be no tension left. But I've got a
wow.
long way to go. So, it's just one step at a time.
Wow. So when I think about clearing out my closet, you're doing a lot of work in a different part of that kind of
I am.
mindset,
Yes.
literally.
Yes.
That's awesome.
But I have a
Yeah.
lot to do still because of the scoliosis. So I think eventually, right, when someone reaches enlightenment, there will be no tension left and they will be pretty much symmetrical, fully balanced, fully aligned.
Wow. And yeah, that just resonates with me because I feel like there is that you can be balanced, like figuratively and literally. Like it is possible. It's not a
Yeah.
myth. It's
And it
just
goes
you
hand in hand, actually, right?
yeah.
The more
Yeah.
physically balanced you are, the more mentally
Mhm.
balanced you are. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
flexible, mental flexibility also. I mean, I can move my neck in ways now that I could not move it before, right? My atlas and my axis bones have released so much tension that I can move my head on the top of my neck, not
Wow.
just move my neck, which is what I used to be able to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think when I go into yoga poses, I remember a year ago where I couldn't do a certain stretch or a certain move because I had tension from whatever reason. It was stuff going on in my arm. Like I had the frozen shoulder for a year, and I just kind of worked through it in my own way. Didn't really go through it in any methodical way like you have shown us today. But I wonder if I could have released it quicker if I had tried that process. So
Right.
next time I start to feel that, I'm going to try something different.
Yeah. And you doing that with EFT, you would talk through how it feels, how it's affecting your life, what the memories of other people who might have had it are, right? All those words and thoughts and memories that live inside of you, you would tap through those and tap through the actual feeling of the shoulder itself and see what happens.
Yeah. And you just kind of touched on that for a minute, but I think, I'm hearing more about this ancestral trauma that we might have, or I think we do have in our bodies that we carry with us. Like as we come down our bloodline, we're taking some of those memories with us if somebody, wasn't able to clear them in a previous generation. And I think
Right.
there is a lot of that too. It's like we have our trauma and then we have the trauma from previous.
generations with us.
Yes, I agree. And it comes
Yeah.
through in the stories and everything and through the birth process, right? From taking it on
Yes.
from our mother. So yes. Yeah, and I think all of that can eventually be released through this work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think more and more, the more and more we figure that out, the better we can start clearing. And I think it's the time, this is the time where we're starting to see that there is a way to do that. And so kudos to you, Anne.
Absolutely. Yes. Right. We're all becoming one, right? We're all becoming able to do all these things at the same time because we're so connected.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Now, the thing I
totally
forgot to
agree.
say is
Yes.
on my website, I do have a free PDF download
Okay.
of, I call it the 5-step blueprint to profound inner peace. So it talks through these steps. So if you didn't want to get the book or watch the videos, that is available for anyone too.
Okay. Great. And I'll make sure I put all that in the show notes for anybody out there. If you're driving, we'll get that information to you. So it's in the show notes. You can check back either in YouTube or on my website. Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners before I let you go?
I do love to share that there is so much more to life than we realize when we haven't done this work, that it's absolutely worth doing because there's so much depth to life. Right? As you deepen your self-awareness, you become aware of more things that are happening within you, but also outside of you and in other people. And it just makes life so much more satisfying. So I absolutely encourage people to do some of this work.
Well, this lights me up. So I'm excited about what I can start uncovering in the next few months. And so I'll definitely give you feedback. I'll let you know how it's going.
Great.
So, yeah. And listeners out there, let us know as you go through your journey too, if you try any of these techniques. You know, check Anne out. She's on YouTube, and I'll put all her contact info in my show notes so you can follow her, but she's definitely accessible, and keep learning.
Thank you. Thanks. This was great. It was fun to have the conversation.
All right. What a powerful conversation, everyone. I hope that you are walking away from this episode as changed as I am. And I want to thank Anne again for so generously sharing her story with us and her wisdom with us. Her message is a powerful one, and it's a great reminder that taking a slow and intentional approach to healing is the most sustainable path that one can take to a better life. For anyone who wants to learn more about Anne's work and find those actionable steps we talked about, be sure to check out our YouTube channel and website, and it's all linked in the show notes. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to both of our YouTube channels for more tips on slowing down to go fast. We'd love to hear from you. If you try any of these techniques, let us know how it's going by connecting with us through our links, also in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. And remember, real success comes from moving with intention, not speed. Until next time, remember, go slow, keep moving forward with purpose, and just know that the light and energy in me acknowledges the light and energy in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, I hope that you let your light and your energy shine through. Thanks for listening.